As we begin, let us pray. We pray for God's blessings on our proceedings today, for His grace to support, inspire, and strengthen us in our endeavors. We pray for the work of the Diaspora Progressive throughout the world in service of our nation of Antigua and Barbuda. We ask God's blessings on the presenters today, that they may know His peace and be guided by His love. May only the truth be spoken and the truth heard. These things we pray in the name of Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon, everyone. Wherever you are across the globe, I'd like to personally welcome you to our second virtual Diaspora Forum. I'm Raelle Hamilton Romeo, and I'm from Villa, which is in City West constituency, and presently I live in New York, and I am so delighted to be your co-host for another Diaspora Forum.
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, fellow nationals. I am Stafford Henderson Byers. I spent the first 14 years of my life in the Grays Green area, which is part of St. John's rural west, and then the next 6 years before leaving Antigua in Radio Range, which is part of rural south. I too live in New York, and it is my privilege to be the co-host along with my inimitable and very charismatic friend, Ms. Raelle Hamilton Romeo. This forum is sponsored by the Diaspora Progressives, a group of Antiguans and Barbudans and well-wishers who have our island states at heart. At this time, Raelle will continue.
So although the Diaspora Progressives is a relatively young group, we've been, in reality just here for about 3 months. We've been so engaged in a number of initiatives, including food and back to school drives, to help ease the burden on those families in Antigua and Barbuda who are currently struggling. To date, we've shipped just over 25 barrels with food items and back to school supplies to 10 different constituencies at a value of approximately $15,000 US. And we're currently working on sending barrels for the remaining 6 constituencies in Antigua, and of course our sister island, Barbuda, will not be left out.
Well, Raelle, that's truly remarkable. And we really appreciate those who have extended themselves and have performed so admirably in getting these barrels together and really getting them to Antigua to help our fellow nationals back home. Now, last month, we hosted the first Diaspora Forum, which featured 4 candidates from the United Progressive Party. If you missed that forum, you can watch it on the Diaspora Progressive YouTube channel. Tonight's virtual forum will feature 4 additional candidates. These are the candidates of the South, and that will become clearer as we progress. We will first hear a short presentation from each of the 4 candidates, followed by a number of questions related to their constituencies and also to the nation at large. And so let's get started right away as we welcome these candidates to our virtual platform as we hear them in their presentation. The first candidate will be introduced by Raelle Hamilton Romeo.
So first up, we have Mr. Franz Schalver DeFreitas. He was born in the proud community of Ovals. He attended the Princess Margaret School, but completed his secondary education at the Caribbean Union College Secondary School in Trinidad. Franz earned a Bachelor of Science degree in accounting from Oakwood College in Huntsville, Alabama. Then he gained professional experience with General Motors, Salomon Smith Barney, Citco Fund Services, and Bank of New York Mellon before becoming self-employed as a consultant. He is a John Maxwell certified coach, speaker, and teacher, and he has lived in Northern Malawi, where he remains the executive director of Africa Lift Incorporated. Franz now operates Youth Lead and focuses on developing young Antiguans and Barbudans in entrepreneurship, leadership development, emotional intelligence, and public speaking. A member of Antiguans and Barbudans for Constitutional Reform and Education, better known as ABCRE, Franz is best known as the co-host of Voice of the People, and he hosts Constitution Corner on Observer Radio. A progressive thinker and solutions seeker, Franz's philosophy is to lift as you climb. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me in welcoming Mr. Franz DeFreitas, the UPP candidate for St. John's City South.
Evening, ladies and gentlemen, and to all those who love Antigua and Barbuda at home and in the diaspora. A special good evening to all the residents of the great constituency of St. John's City South. It gives me great pleasure to participate in this Diaspora Progressive Virtual Forum tonight because it is important for us to recognize the role that is played by those who have left Antigua to be ambassadors and currently live in the diaspora. I speak with the understanding that this is one in many conversations as we together seek to create something great in our beloved Antigua and Barbuda. As I seek to be a servant for the people of St. John's City South, and by extension, the nation of Antigua and Barbuda, it is my desire to see a community well-trained, modern, functional, cohesive, and innovative across all sectors of its operation. The basis of any strong community starts at the foundation with all its people, young, middle-aged, and mature, the greatest and most important resource of any society. My aspiration envisions a strong education system and a well-trained, multi-sectorial workforce that will exceed the expectation and standards set by a reorganized business district. Let's start our discussion tonight by focusing on education. This is the area that has been allocated for me for consideration by the United Progressive Party. The purpose of education is to prepare recipients to effectively negotiate life and create wealth for themselves, their families, and aggregately our nation. Education should be continuous throughout life. No one who desires education should be excluded or denied in our ideal system. As such, education, whether academic, technical, technological, or artistic, should be free from primary school through college in Antigua and Barbuda. A solid public education system is the primary pillar of all successful nations. If we are going to effectively prepare our students in Antigua and Barbuda to compete in a 21st century economy, we must revise the educational content as well as the way in which we currently deliver education in our school system. If we are to meet the lifelong learning and career aspirations which we encourage our students, youth, and adults to achieve, it is essential to provide an equitable and relevant education system with new knowledge, competencies, creativity, critical thinking, cultural, ethical, and civic values and opportunities for individuals and families to build wealth, which will in turn expand the economic development of our nation. The basis for achieving this goal should be clearly laid out in a national educational strategic plan for Antigua and Barbuda. Unfortunately, our education system has been plagued by two successive ministers of education who lack the vision and the interest to develop the human capital of our nation. In a time when, if properly planned and implemented, electronic devices would be in place to meet the needs of students in this COVID crisis, we find that no such tools, although I don't pay for them with tax dollars in Antigua and Barbuda, exist. In a time of crisis, on the verge of the resumption of in-person instruction, when clarity of policy is paramount for parents to have confidence in the education system, to send their children back into classrooms, we have a Minister of Education that jumps and waffles and is indecisive, unable to provide clarity of policy that is necessary at a critical time. The current science points to a safe return of children to the classroom with mandatory mask provisions and vaccination where possible. While I fully support the science with mandatory masks for all students and teachers, parents should be empowered, educated, and encouraged to make decisions for their children regarding vaccinations. In the interest of time, I will raise for discussion some proposals for how we can begin to update our education system in Antigua and Barbuda. All schools should have their own budget allocated by the Ministry of Education so that education can be truly free and poor people picnic in the public school system now have to find all kind of money from all over the place for have a comparable level of education as those in private school. Teachers also should not have to supplement the public education with the small salaries that they don't make right now. They make a phenomenal sacrifice as it is in the delivery of education, often playing multiple roles in their interaction with students. A lot is changing when it comes to school, at least how we traditionally view it. One of the ideas that have been widely discussed is that of the extension of the school day to match the work day for parents. An extended school day will provide for additional instruction time for academics, more time for the arts and physical education, additional time for play and recreation, and it would orient students to the realities of what a real work life would look like post-graduation at the secondary level. Teacher quality is another issue, and it is positively linked with student learning. For this reason, a good system should be developed and implemented to improve teacher performance. Educators should be equipped with all the necessary resources to focus on delivering education in the best physical environments with improved compensation levels based on performance. Having an updated curriculum is paramount to education. It is tiring that we have this old 50 years ago system that we're still pushing as the best solution for this 21st century education that we need. Our system could more effectively meet the needs demanded of a progressive society by the inclusion of entrepreneurship from the primary level of education, the integration of stronger technology focus in our education, the addition of local history and culture, and the exploration of crafts and trade skills at the secondary levels of our education system. Our education system should provide multiple paths of exit out of the secondary system. Right now, the only thing that you can do is take CXC. If you pass and you do well. If you fail, well, crap or smoke for your pipe. For example, for CXC, that is the traditional path. Families who desire the traditional path should be able to choose that traditional path. Whether you want to take 5, 10, 15, or 30 subjects, you should have the opportunity to do that. But several children have the opportunity to head to the United States, to head to Canada, and further afield. They should be familiarized with the practice of ACT, SAT, and other standardized test systems that could be an option for them. For students who are interested in trades, access to the TVET certificate, that is a regional certificate, should be possible at the secondary level. So not just people who fail or people who you think don't gonna make it go into the trades. We certainly have to groom our students to understand that the trades are just as important as any academic elements of education that may exist. And so we should prepare them to enter the world of trades as professionals and travel anywhere throughout the region to explore possibilities that exist. Also, entrepreneurship should exist for those wishing to launch their businesses, and we should strongly support, I would suggest we should facilitate entrepreneurship for students out of school, allowing them to have various systems to be able to move directly into that path if they so desire. As we seek to harness the human resources of our young people, our youth, and youth development programs, we should have strong focus on mental wellness. This is something Antigua and Barbuda, St. John City South, that if we don't pay attention to, we're going to just lose a whole generation of young people because we pay no attention to the mental health of our children. We must be able to have this tool in our arsenal to prevent negative behaviors and to equip youth to navigate adolescence in healthy ways. Look, I don't know that it is difficult to be a teenager just normally. It is critical that we support our young people at this important time in their life. Our system should be cognizant, strategic, and sensitive to this issue in particular. It would be remiss of me to conclude my presentation talking about education tonight and some of the things that we can do without mentioning the importance of a modern national public library. It seems that this gets forgotten somewhere in the mix of things in Antigua and Barbuda as we seek to develop our nation. Currently, our public library is underfunded and underutilized as a tool for national development. As a matter of fact, if you go up there, failing the efforts of the hard-working people who do so much, and the groups within the diaspora that do so much to support this library, nothing go on from the government side with funding for this organization. Our nation requires a modern public library which meets the needs of all citizens of our Twin Island nation. Libraries no longer only provide free access to books, but are centers of cultural immersion, hubs for technological access, a place for companionship for older adults, and a de facto support environment for busy parents. A center for language and instruction, as well as immersion for new immigrants to Antigua and Barbuda, and welcoming public spaces for the poor and young people in our societies. Libraries should connect the community in a way that benefits everyone. Folks, time doesn't permit me in this forum to share all the details of how the aforementioned proposals will be developed or implemented, but our collective and ongoing dialogue can achieve this goal as the United Progressive Party positions itself to lead Antigua and Barbuda into a progressive future. I would just like to thank you for giving me the time to open this discussion. I look forward to continuing to talk to people, particularly those in the diaspora who want to step forward and help as to how we can have a better Antigua and Barbuda. Thank you.
Wow, that was powerful. Thank you so much, Mr. DeFreitas. Now, Riel, a number of tremendous points were brought out. I especially like one point that he made about training and evaluating teacher effectiveness. I think everyone would benefit from that. He also added a component of awarding for effectiveness and the result of teachers. What do you think about it?
I love both of those things. And I will say selfishly, because I am an adjunct professor, one the things that I am a huge proponent of is foundational as well as lifelong education. And I think this platform of updating the curriculum and also just the overall educational outlook in Antigua and Barbuda is going to be amazing. And then to make sure that we're pushing trade careers as much as professional careers and giving those future tradespeople that opportunity is going to make a huge difference as well. Everyone can't be a lawyer and a doctor. We still need some plumbers and mason workers and everything else. And so they should have the opportunity to be propelled to the forefront as much as anyone else.
Yes, and I think also by incorporating this into the system and having it as one of the paths, these trades as one of the paths from high school, it will raise it in people's mentality that this is just an alternate path. It's
Correct.
not inferior to the academic path. I think that's very important.
Yeah,
The final thing I'd like to extract from that is also the utilization, well, the development and utilization of the public library. I think that was fascinating because these are some of the things that the public library is supposed to be accomplishing, especially for people in the lower rungs of the ladder who do not have the resources to access some of these services elsewhere.
Absolutely. I think as a kid, I spent a lot of afternoons in the public library because my mom was working. So to hear that the public library is in such a state, it literally makes my heart cry because I'm like, what are all these kids doing? It was a place where I went to meet with friends. I was on the computer. I got to learn how to use the library and all the systems, how to do research. Without having a functional public library, we really are setting ourselves up for the future generation not being able to manage or even compete in a global economy. And that's just not fair to have our youth at such a disadvantage.
Yes, thank you so much. Now it is my esteemed privilege to introduce our next speaker. Gladys Samuel Potter is a multicultural and multinational Antiguan, born to a mother from the Dominican Republic and the father from St. Lucia. She's a graduate of the Arts Comprehensive School and the Business Studies program at the Antigua and Barbuda State College. She successfully completed courses in risk management, a chartered director's course with the Caribbean Governance Training Institute, and a business course with the Antigua and Barbuda Investment Authority. For 13 years, Mrs. Potter worked with the gaming software company, holding supervisory and management positions and undertaking assignments in areas as far away as Bulgaria and the Philippines, where she trained staff in risk management. She's a past vice president of the St. John's Cooperative Credit Union, where she chaired the Human Resources Committee. She's also a past president of the Mary E. Piggott Primary School Parents Teachers Association. A farmer and an entrepreneur, she's currently proprietor of a small business and remains involved in community services, particularly with the elderly and with the young. Hosting for the elderly seniors, an annual seniors dinner. And for the youth, she's inaugurated Shine Your Light Expo. A dedicated Christian wife and mother, she's the mother of 3 sons and 1 daughter. Her aim is to be a refreshing breeze that brings lasting change to her constituency and by extension, the entire nation of Antigua and Barbuda. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my esteemed honor to present to you Mrs. Gladys Samuel Potter.
Good night, brothers and sisters. Join me in 30 seconds of silence as we acknowledge the deaths of loved ones that we have lost over the last month, please. Good night, brothers and sisters who are locked in from the diaspora. The change we seek will need your strength. Thank you to the Diaspora Progressive team for seizing the opportunity to join with the Redeemed team and leadership of the United Progressive Party to include our opposition, leading the opposition, Brother Jamal Pringle, and leadership of the United Progressive Party, our political leader, Brother Harold Lovell, to set our ship of state right. I'm especially excited to use this forum as one of several ways to reach out to our brothers and sisters in the diaspora, particularly those who are from the St. John's Road South constituency. Cheryl, Kalia, pay attention. Jermaine, Karen, Trevor, Amanda, Louis, and Carmen, Auntie Rose, Genevieve, Aunt Isabel. Rally the troop in the diaspora. Yes. We're getting ready to work. Our campaign team sees the strengthening of this relationship as critical to our constituencies and country's development. Special greetings to the brave, talented, and dignified people of the St. John's Road South constituency. I'm here because of you. It is my desire to represent you. Yes. Change has been a long time coming, but I'm here and I've heard you. What I present today is not my own, it's ours. Yes, yes, Gladys. Antigua and Barbuda is for all of us to share in and develop, whether you live here or abroad. We in the United Progressive Party are about giving that prize office called citizen the elevated status and treatment that it deserves. If we do not value our citizens, our country's image and the value of its passport will remain tarnished like the rag this ALP regime has made it to be. No, our country's image, our passport, and your citizenship of this beloved nation will continue to be unworthy of honor or value in the regional and international community. Such is the fate we have had because of the callous, reckless, corrupt, and embarrassing nature of the Gaston Brown administration. Wicked set of people. The squandering of our limited resources have returned again under the Labour Party government. The country has returned to a state of squalor under the ALP. Mercy, Lord. Brothers and sisters, I cast my eyes upon the desperate state that our seniors with humble means have found themselves in under this ALP regime. Lord have mercy. I heard the Prime Minister's vulgar charge to his ministers to enrich themselves, but I've not heard of any creative plans of strengthening the weakened state of those agencies charged with the mandate to see to the well-being of our senior citizens. While the ALP top brass and hangers-on live high off the hog, our seniors suffer sunstroke waiting outside the Social Security office to get their payments, which are many months overdue. Have mercy, Lord. Now, in an effort to save payments, further public embarrassment, they are trying to send more seniors to the bank to get their Social Security money, even when they know that it has not been sent. Talk about carrying the fool a little further. Brothers and sisters, who will take responsibility for our seniors who are left without the necessary welfare support from GRACE, the government unit that provides in-home care for seniors who live alone? The unit is understaffed and underfunded. The staff is struggling to be relevant and effective with little resources given. Who will take up the fight on their behalf to prevent this government's neglect of their responsibilities to our senior citizens? The Redeem team is ready. Yeah. The Redeem team is willing. Yeah. The Redeem team is able. But we cannot do it alone. No. Antiguans and Barbudans at home and abroad partner with us to preserve the welfare of our senior citizens. We have to do this together. Yes, man. The first step is to call for Gaston Brown to step down. Or call election now so we can do the right thing, make the right choice. Yes. And with our brothers and sisters in the diaspora, As one of our critical development partners, we will create an Antigua and Barbuda worthy for all to retire in peace, love, and unity. For example, we pitch for an alliance that will result in the formation of a senior citizens development foundation that will work along with the Ministry of Social Transformation and community organization, for it will take all stakeholders working together to bring about the change we need.
Yes, yes, yes.
This foundation will raise funds for special development projects to benefit senior citizens. These may include funding the construction of access ramps to homes of needy seniors,
Yes.
funding for grace to be more effective, or establish a similar program that offers elderly care. Partnering with the ministry to develop active aging programs and training support for aides who do in-home care and so on.
Yes.
We will draw on the enormous wealth of knowledge of our seniors who still have the ability to give more of themselves to our nation's development. We will have mentorship programs led by some of our seniors to inculcate good values in some of our youth.
Yes, yes, yes.
There will also be a structured program to document the lived experiences of some of our coherent seniors. Remember, they shape our nation's history at the local and national level.
Tell them, Gladys.
They too have a story to tell.
Tell them,
We
Gladys.
see value in our seniors. Now, in the area of youth development, there are an abundance of opportunities. My colleague Franz DeFreitas has a deep interest in this and has often told us, as he just did, of some of the ways youth development can be improved. It is fair to say that we will see investment in our youth as a necessary part of our national development agenda. In St. John's Wood South, I've made clear my campaign team's vision of refashioning how we tackle youth development issues.
Yes.
We see this as a part of a collaborative effort with the sporting groups, churches, and other community organizations which have youth development as one of their focuses. From the womb to the tomb, the UPP's development agenda is people-focused.
People first, man. People first.
Presently, the holistic well-being of our children is in jeopardy. It is no secret that the pandemic has highlighted the Gaston Brown administration weakness, one of which is no plans, no program, no vision, no assistance for parents who lost their source of revenue but still have children to feed and bills to pay.
Mercy, Lord.
Many families in Antigua today have stepped into the poverty bracket or are borderline. We hear about money going to renovate or refurbish or whatever they say they're going to do with the cemetery. Gaston and Mulwin, that is not a priority. At this time, regular care packages are more of a priority. Unemployment benefits are more of a priority. APUA is a priority. We need electricity. Brothers and sisters, who will take responsibility for the well-being of our children? Are we satisfied with how the Labour Party administration is caring for our children?
No.
Are we satisfied with no assistance, no aid, no stimulus from the ALP administration? Are we satisfied?
No.
I am not satisfied. The Redeem team is not satisfied. The Labour Party has neglected all of us. Join with the Redeem team to send a clear message that Gaston Brown must step down.
Yes, yes,
And if you don't want to step down, call election now. We will do the right thing. We will make the right choice.
yes, yes, yes.
We face a stark reality today. Here are some of the examples of the mess we are in. The unemployment rate is over 25%. Many young people, young and middle age, many people, young and middle age, are under severe mental health stress due to job loss. They cannot support their family.
Have mercy, Lord.
The survival of many of our small businesses is under threat due to no subsidy from this wicked Labour Party administration. Meanwhile, this very evil Labour Party administration wants to spend huge sum of monies on water cannons to keep protesters in check.
Have mercy, Lord.
No urgency is given to replacing old and damaged fire tenders, but water cannons to suppress protests is a priority. Shame on them.
Shame on them.
They can spend millions on tablets and that are older than the long extinct dodo bird. Millions of precious dollars were siphoned off in an extremely questionable ebook scheme, in which today, when remote learning is so necessary, no ebooks can be found.
Not one.
No modern and well-functioning tablets can be found.
Not one.
No reliable internet infrastructure can be found.
Nowhere around.
No support for needy families with children in school to pay less for expensive internet service can be found. So what happens? The poor and powerless remain poor and powerless. So you see, this ALP administration must go. They are evil, greedy, and uncaring. Darrell Matthew, you said you would not fit in with the Labour way, but you did. You said you were different, but you are not. A word to the wise is good enough. So learn this. In the marketplace of selling souls, don't you ever play sell role. Consumers will tell you big and bold that the buyer's always in control. Don't play with your integrity, boy. You see wrong and call it right, and you see right and call it wrong. Integrity is nothing to play with. Redeem yourself by moving a motion of no confidence in Gaston Brown. You need to call him to step down. Redeem yourself. Do right by the people of St. John's Road South. Get back your integrity. My brothers and sisters in the diaspora, especially those from the St. John's Road South constituency, I call on you. Join the fight. Partner with us. Join our campaign, not just the political campaign, but our constituency development campaign for a better St. John's Road South. We need your skills. We need your knowledge to advise us on ways we can improve various aspects of the constituency. And we need your financial support too. We also look forward to your help in our Christmas cheer to bring the spirit of Christmas to those in need in the constituency. Contact me via WhatsApp 1268-784-0424 or on Facebook Messenger if you are desirous in joining in this good work. So Natalie, Kimberly, Joanne, Samuel, Candia, Letty, Julio, Mikey, rally the troops. Good works is about to happen. So join us. You don't want to miss out on this. A little love goes a long way.
Long way.
In the spirit of cooperation, we want an Antigua and Barbuda in which all of its citizens have that pride of place in their homeland. We all must earnestly share in our nation's rescue. The opportunities for a better quality of life is for all of us, native born and citizens by acquisition, those residing here and those residing abroad. We are grateful for this relationship. For all of you who believe in good governance, merit as the yardstick for our social and economic advancement, as well as fairness and sensitivity, then this team, the team to redeem, is the team to support. St. John's Road South Massive, thank you for trusting me with your concerns. Position me to serve you better. Team UPP St. John's Road South Constituency Branch. Teamwork makes the dream work. Thank you for trusting me with your time, effort, and resources. Together, we still got this.
Yes, we got this, Gladys.
This Redeem team, led by Brother Harold Lovell, not only can, but will do better.
Yes.
St. John's Road South, I am here. This is what I'm asking of you. Vote Gladys Potter.
Yes, yes, yes.
Antigua and Barbuda, vote the United Progressive Party. Vote UPP.
Yes.
We are the right choice.
Yes.
Antigua and Barbuda, God is raising up leaders who will make laws and policies based on godly principles. Do the right thing.
Yes.
Vote for leaders who put God first. Vote UPP. Thank you very much. God bless us all.
Wow, Mrs. Potter, that was amazing. Her energy was so infectious. I can't even tell you. I was really sitting here cheering along as well, and I hope you were too, Stafford.
Yes,
I will say she was great, right?
She was on point and on fire.
Seriously. And I honestly, I think the one thing that really stood out to me, like we know UPP's message is definitely people first, but when Mrs. Potter said they are people first and focused from the womb to the tomb, she really meant it. All of these development programs for all citizens, regardless of age, but with a specific focus on youth development and also senior care and welfare, it just really spoke volumes to me. What about you?
Yes, indeed. I was especially intrigued as she started out that we need to keep faith with seniors. And that's very, very important. These people who have sacrificed their lives, many of them could have left Antigua and Barbuda, but they stayed, they labored for the further development of the country. And if we don't keep faith with them, it's going to be, it's number one, it's immoral, number one. Number two, it will act as a disincentive for youths to say, well, let's stay and further develop the country. I think we need to really focus on that. Then I also like, as she went to the opposite end of the spectrum, to talk about developing our youth, because that is our future. I also like the fact that she envisions having some type of mentorship program whereby seniors who have now retired could then mentor some of the youngsters. Their skills and the experiences that these seniors have learned could then be passed on to another generation. I think this is just a great presentation. Great presentation.
Yeah, absolutely great. I mean, even that aspect of having seniors mentor reminded me of that movie, The Intern, where the older gentleman was at a tech company and he felt like he had nothing to give, but there's so much value in their experience just from life itself, as well as education. And I think having that kind of mentorship will definitely go a long way. It's just really, really great, everything that she talked about. One thing that really struck me though, 25% unemployment. I mean, a lot needs to really be done and improved. Our people are suffering.
Yeah, I made a note of that too. And the emotional and mental health repercussions of such, because all of us want to be able to support our families and so on. A sense of angst must really envelop and saturate people when that level of unemployment is there and they can't find any means of employment to support their family. Yes.
Yeah, it's just as important. It's a lot. And hopefully, you know, with this team in place, we can start to see some of those improvements and some of the initiatives that Mrs. Potter was talking about, like having electronic devices or even the ebooks, or just a solid internet infrastructure. So that way this distance learning could go a much longer way. So much there. But we do have a tight time frame tonight. So we will take a short break and we'll be right back. Unemployment, decreasing opportunities, crime, COVID-19, poor governance, the environment. Look around. Our twin island nation needs your help. That's why the Diaspora Progressives are raising funds to help the UPP develop practical solutions that will benefit citizens and residents. From providing COVID relief to implementing community outreach projects, your donation to the Better Antigua and Barbuda Fund can make a difference for this and future generations. Visit GoFundMe.com and search for Help Secure a Better Antigua and Barbuda to lend your support to the UPP, the right choice.
Welcome back. We encourage everyone to support the Better Antigua and Barbuda Fund. We will now hear from our next speaker, the UPP candidate for St. Mary's South, Mr. Cartwright Marshall. Cartwright Marshall is a consummate Southman involved in agriculture and sports, among other community activities. Corthwright has decades of institutional knowledge and is a regular presenter to the Movement and Progressive 107.3 FM programs. He has served as the Director of Tourism, Policy, and Planning, and on the board of the Hospitality Training Institute. the Investment Authority, the Airline Licensing Board, and the Board of Education. Regionally, he has been an officer of the Caribbean Tourism Organization and worked with the CARICOM Single Market and Economy. A graduate of the Bolins Primary and Jennings Secondary Schools, he earned a Bachelor's of Law from the University of Wolverhampton with distinction, a Master's of Law specializing in banking and finance from the University of Liverpool, a certificate in legal education from the Hugh Wooding Law School in Trinidad, and a diploma in Spanish from the University of Havana, and a Master's of Science in Economic Planning from the University of Las Villas, Santa Clara in Cuba. He believes that politics is about creating opportunities for the people, including decent housing, meaningful education and employment prospects, and modern healthcare. His watchwords are pride, prosperity, responsibility, inclusion, development, and empowerment to the community. Let us now welcome to the podium, Mr. Cartwright Marshall.
Good evening. It is both a privilege and a pleasure to be part of this conversation on issues relating to the diaspora. Given the enormity, however, of this problem and the challenges facing the country as a result of COVID-19 and the urgent need for new thinking and fresh ideas to overcome these challenges, I will spend the next few minutes allotted to me on the topic, Beyond Charity, the diaspora as an agency or vehicle for economic empowerment, transformation, and repositioning of the national economy of Antigua and Barbuda post-COVID-19.
Yes.
COVID, no doubt, has led to significant economic and social dislocation in the twin island nation of Antigua and Barbuda, caused sharp increase in unemployment, about 30%, and poverty, put down pressure on output, widened the fiscal imbalance, approximately 9%, and increased social vulnerabilities. The lingering question facing the twin island nation state of Antigua and Barbuda is how we are going to come out of this dilemma.
That's the question.
Research has shown that the diaspora holds tremendous potential for development. In fact, the World Bank, as far back as 2013, deposited the idea of the diaspora as an untapped potential resource for economic development. Policy framework of the diaspora plan in the region, notable Jamaica and Grenada, have identified the direct and indirect impact of diaspora on national development in the following terms: remittances and direct diaspora investment, knowledge transfer, diaspora tourism, telecommunication, trade and goods in culture. It is important to state that we are facing some serious development issues in light of COVID-19. In addition, it is important for us to note that the ALP administration has failed to revisit the issues in terms of our development and continue to deposit old ideas instead of new ideas for the rescue of the economy of Antigua and Barbuda as a result of the devastation caused by COVID-19.
The bankrupt of ideas.
The growth of the diaspora in the last few decades has led to a new development paradigm with economic flows like financial transfers, remittances playing a crucial role in poverty reduction, and enterprise development. Additionally, the diasporic economy can play even more significant role in telecoms, tourism, transportation, and trade in nostalgic economic, ethnic, or niche goods. Antigua and Barbuda, therefore, has an opportunity to unlock the potential for growth in the economy of Antigua and Barbuda.
Teach them, Carty, teach them, teach them.
Based on the above perspective, the diaspora can be a development nexus to enhance economic diversification and deepen global competitiveness and the economic repositioning of the national economy in the 21st century.
Teach them, Carty.
With that said, I would like to say a few words with respect to the following issues. Issue number 1, remittances and diaspora direct investment. While remittances have been a permanent contribution made by the diaspora community, investment and entrepreneurship remains a significant area of potential contribution to the national economy of Antigua and Barbuda.
That's right, that's right.
And with the decline in foreign direct investments since 2014, remittances and direct investment by the diaspora community should be looked at as an alternative to foreign direct investment, or at least to complement foreign direct investment. Increased support for diaspora investment and enterprise is therefore fundamental to sustainable development. It can play a critical role in reducing poverty, creating opportunities and improving livelihood through harnessing innovation, technology, and capital creation, and exercising a multiplier effect on income distribution. This will not only improve livelihood and well-being, but will allow government to focus on priority areas such as affordable health, education, and nutrition for all our children.
Yes, yes, Carty.
Diaspora investment have the potential to bring to the economy knowledge and skills, superior technology, and improved business practices in addition to financial capital. Let us now take a brief look at diasporic tourism. An argument can be made in favor of greater attention to focus on diasporic tourism as an important addition to the range of target markets and categories in the global tourism industry. Diasporic tourism is already having a direct impact in terms of arrival and visitor expenditure. Events such as homecoming, carnival, and cricket are notable examples. There are also direct economic impact in sectors such as telecom services, the sale of nostalgic goods and services, along with purchases from the creative industries. In short, brothers and sisters, the growth of diasporic tourism has allowed for economic diversification of the tourism sector. Diasporic tourism therefore presents an important opportunity for a more sustainable and inclusive economic development policy. Let us now take a brief look at the diaspora as a brand ambassadors. Our music, food, sport, cultural practices has found global renown through the diaspora, acting as brand ambassadors, with benefit occurring to businesses through sales and marketing, particularly in the music industry. And we must note the importance of our calypso and our calypsonian in traveling to the United States to showcase the culture of Antigua and Barbuda and the importance of the diaspora in the development of our cultural enterprise.
Teach them, Carty, teach them.
Let us take a brief look at knowledge transfer. The members of the diaspora acquired significant capital of ideas, skills, networks, and economic resources, and can make considerable contribution to the national development of the nation state. Our brother Franz DeFreitas is an example, and we heard him today looking at the whole question of education. The other significant contribution of members of the diaspora community can make in terms of knowledge transfer. I've been told that there was a gentleman who applied for a position in one of the leading firms in Jamaica. He was interviewed, and in addition, he was selected along with 2 other persons. However, although he was shortlisted, he was not given the nod. The nod was given to someone who he taught in the university, and he ended up by showing what to do. The point is this, that we have tremendous skills within the diaspora community, and then it is important for our government to utilize those skills, those talents to bring to the forefront of our national development. In that way, Antigua would win and the people of Antigua would benefit.
Transfer of knowledge.
Brothers and sisters, it is very important that when we look at the role of the diaspora community in national development, we also look at the question of innovation and diversification. Because with that skill set, with the capital that is available, whether it is remittances or direct diaspora investment, that investment can be put to the disposal of all the niche sectors in Antigua and Barbuda. For example, there is the question of what we call the blue economy. And instead of utilizing foreign direct investment in such a potential area for national development, it would be better for the government of Antigua and Barbuda to mobilize the capital within the diaspora, utilizing the skills and the knowledge of our diaspora community to invest in such lucrative areas. There is also the question of the agro-industrial development of Antigua and Barbuda. Instead of doing what the government has done, we have known that the government signs agreement with YIDA, agreement with global ports, and in that respect has significantly reduced the opportunities of local Antiguans and Barbudans, or even CARICOM citizens, in investing in such lucrative sectors of our national economy. That does not make absolutely no sense. There is one other area that I would like to look at, is diaspora in rural community development. Because it is important, and even the IMF and the World Bank has indicated that rural transformation is at the heart of national development. And so therefore it is important, given again the skill set, the talents and the resources of our diaspora community, and given the fact that for every single citizen in Antigua and Barbuda, there's perhaps one member from the community living in the diaspora, they would have not only nostalgia, they would not only have commitment to their community of birth, but by putting their resources, their skills at and to the development of our community, it will create the type of empowerment that is required. It would create the type of inclusiveness of members of the community in national development, and thereby help to create employment opportunities for the people in the various communities, and therefore the creation of wealth by the members of the community, for the community, and by the community themselves. And here the diaspora plays a very important role in that development. So given the importance of the diaspora, I think it is very important for us to look at transformative shift in diaspora engagement. We have to make a shift in how we view the diaspora and the role that the diaspora can play and actually should play in national development.
Yes.
The United Progressive Party is therefore committed to enhancing involvement of the diaspora in national development.
That we are.
The fact that we are having this conversation is an indication of the UPP unwavering commitment to the diaspora engagement in economic, social, cultural, and political issues facing our nation.
Fully committed. Fully committed.
It is also a commitment of the United Progressive Party that we will create the type of institution to ensure that there's full involvement of the diaspora community in national development. As such, it is important for us to understand that the diaspora is also a vehicle for change.
Yes.
The diaspora community is therefore a bedrock for progressive ideas, and has always been, be it economic or political.
Yes.
For decades, the diaspora communities have provided critical support for the political transformation of our societies. In this regard, it is important to extend opportunities for the diaspora, whether directly or indirectly, to continue to exercise such franchise. Turning a blind eye to bad governance, corruption, and repression has always been the hallmark of the diaspora community. Provided, in addition, providing an environment to engage and empower the diaspora is a policy of the United Progressive Party.
Yes. Fully committed. Fully committed.
Brothers and sisters, I am confident that with the abundance of skills, talents endowed by our Creator and nurtured over years through education, training, experience, and dialogue, we, the people of Antigua and Barbuda, in Antigua and in the diaspora, can create for the first time in our economic, political, and cultural history a society which, in the words of the founding father of the independence of America, and so brilliantly written in the Declaration of Independence, a society that will provide for the safety, security, and happiness of the people.
Yes.
By creating the necessary facilitative environment, the diaspora will be the golden thread that weave the natural, human, and financial resources into an inclusive, innovative, and democratic plan for national development and transformation in the 21st century.
Yes.
I have no doubt that together we can.
Yes,
Thank you
we
very much.
can.
That's right. Leadership.
Mr. Marshall, thank you so much. What another high-spirited presentation. I will say, I think my favorite line from Mr. Marshall's presentation was a transformative shift in how we are engaging the diaspora, which is the whole reason the diaspora progressives are here. So that really struck a chord with me. What about you, Stafford?
Indeed, it did also with me. I've long been mystified as to why governments in Antigua tend to relish the remittances, but seem to abhor any involvement of the diaspora in long-term economic development. They'll go and beg and plead and bow to others to invest, when in both the long term and the short term, involving the diaspora would be great. The short term, it creates employment for our people, and in the long term, the money can be reinvested instead of taken out by outside investors. And I say this not to exclude outside investors. I'm just saying, just as you shouldn't not shut out the outside one, you should also not shut out the diaspora who have the Antigua and Barbuda at their heart.
Yeah, because we can, I mean, even if any one individual member of the diaspora isn't able to invest on his or her own, we can definitely like pool our money together. You know,
Absolutely.
we've been doing that for years with things like throwing box and all kind of stuff. So why wouldn't we be able to do something similar to be able to make a larger investment impact? I really just, it really resonated with me. And I think should this come to fruition, we're going to see not only that shift that Mr. Marshall was talking about, but every candidate so far has mentioned innovation. And I think we will see a lot of that innovation really starting to bubble up a bit more.
Yes, I also like the focus on knowledge transfer, because a lot of times I know people who have spoken to members of officials of the Labour Party government and express an interest of coming back to Antigua to work. And they initially appeared to be quite gleeful about this, but then their enthusiasm waned, the government official enthusiasm waned over time. And instead of being facilitators, they became impediments to such knowledge coming back. It seems as if some people do not want nationals with knowledge to be back in Antigua. For them, maybe it's self-preservation they're worried about. For them, it poses a challenge. It poses some degree of competition on their part, and they prefer to have untrammeled access. And of course, getting people from outside to come, because then they eventually will leave. They won't have the power base that the national would have.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I will say personally and selfishly, when I was almost finished with my college education, I was even thinking about moving back to Antigua myself. But as I looked around for jobs in my field, and I looked for a while, I could not unearth anything. And so I was like, well, I guess I'll stay here. So I think having that availability of those types of careers, or even just opportunities to extend your knowledge in other ways, could pose a huge impact. And we really will start to see things shifting with members of the diaspora coming back home, and even our brothers and sisters on island just extending their ability to do more and even bring more to the region.
Amen.
Well, now next up, we are just about halfway through, and I will say I am really honored to be able to introduce the next candidate. His name is Sherfield Bowen, and he is the UPP candidate for St. Philip's South. So Mr. Bowen attended the historic Bethesda Primary School and graduated from Pears Secondary, later earning a Bachelor of Science in Accounting, cum laude, from Lehman College of the City University of New York. Mr. Bowen distinguished himself as a chartered financial consultant and a chartered life underwriter through the American College in Pennsylvania, and became a certified financial planner through the College for the College for Financial Planning in Denver, Colorado. Bowen then attended the prestigious Howard University School of Law in Washington, D.C., graduating in 1994 with a Juris Doctor, also cum laude. That same year, he became a certified public accountant with the Maryland State Board of Accountancy and qualified as a lawyer in New York State. He later established a successful accounting firm in New York before returning to Antigua as a tax consultant to the government. In 1999, Mr. Bowen was elected to the Parliament as the member for St. Philip's South, and served as Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives. He left politics after exposing the failings of the Antigua Labour Party administration and in good governance, accountability, and transparency. But Sherfield never abandoned his calling to empower ordinary people, positively impact lives, and foster an enlightened democracy. Now the senior attorney at Bowen & Bowen Law Firm, Sherfield still regards himself as that boy from Bethesda and considers himself the real deal. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a hearty welcome to Mr. Sherfield Bowen.
Madam Chairperson and Mr. Chairman, the members and executive members of Diaspora Progressives, fellow colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, members of the St. Philip's South constituency, good evening. My task today is to bring the closing argument in the case the United Progressive Party is the right choice for the election that is upcoming. You see, I am tasked with the portfolio of speaking to national security, the prison, the police, ONDCP, National Security Council. And I begin with 500 days ago, more than 500 days ago, we were thrust into state of emergency. State of emergency is a process where some of our rights are being reduced and taken back by the government. 500 days hence, we're still in a state of emergency. First takeaway from that is, if a government, any government, faced with an emergency, and 500 days after, they're still in an emergency, then I'm saying it is time for a change. Countries around the Caribbean have moved on and have been working back to normalcy. Antigua and Barbuda has been left in a state of emergency. United Progressive Party is the right choice. We, as a government, would have dealt with this COVID-19 pandemic in a more responsible manner. Let us begin by looking at how it all began back in March 2020 and how it evolved when we first heard about vaccines. You would recall that we learned in the news that the Prime Minister is said to have inoculated himself before we knew where any vaccines would come from. That is the first step, or the first stage of doubt created among the population. The Prime Minister had some video circulating that showing that he had the vaccine, only to find that a closer look at the video showed there was no fluid in the syringe. That is the second doubt. And so when it evolves to some of our citizens having doubt in the vaccine, the doubt came from the top. United Progressive Party is a party that will deal with the rule of law. And here it is, some of the people on 8th of August taking a protest, exercising their right to express themselves as is found in the Constitution. And the police came in riot gear, tear gassing the people, shooting at the people. Where is the right of the people to protest? That is not protected. United Progressive Party is a party that will protect those rights. We will engage in consultation with the people. We will listen, and we will find ways of working together to bring harmony in the community. To all ideas contend, we will listen to the people, and we will consult with them, and we will find ways to deal with the problem. We look over at our neighbor in Barbados. That is what they're doing. They're consulting with the people. They're listening to the people. They are trying to help the people to make good decisions, but they will not force any decision upon the people. You know, there's a paradox in this whole tear gassing the people, because we learned that back in the 1960s and late 50s, when Cartwright Marshall was there fighting for equality in education in the United States of America. One of the lawyers with Cartwright Marshall, as Zephaniah Alexander Luby, was one of the key lawyers in that fight. That lawyer was born in Antigua and Barbuda. He emigrated to the United States when he was 15 years old and became a lawyer. He went to Howard University, where I went. And he was one of the lawyers who fought and secured the freedom for students, protesting students, freedom from water cannoning, freedom from tear gassing. And the irony is that him having achieved that in the United States, his family, his children, grandchildren, his kin in Antigua are now being tear gassed. And to add injury to the flame, the government came out the next day and said, next time they bring in water cannons. I am saying we will reverse that. That will not happen on the United Progressive Party. Zephaniah Alexander Luby must be rolling in his grave to see that his beloved land that he left that was so peaceful, the land that he knew in the 1950s, Antigua and Barbuda, was so peaceful. You, members of the diaspora, you must have nostalgic memories of the peaceful nature that you left Antigua and Barbuda when you left. The police were your friends, they were your neighbors. They were people who worked with the community and kept us safe. Today, Antigua and Barbuda is in reverse gear. We are reversing fast back to the old colonial days. I am saying it is time for a change. It's time for a change in the direction of the police, where they will move from violent response among the people to the people and look to work with the people, bring peace and harmony. The crime rate is out of control. Police need strengthening and training. They need facilities. They need guidance. And that is what United Progressive Party will bring. With respect to the prison, we have a situation in the prison where, first of all, the plant is 1735, we call it. The plant is outdated. It needs a new facility altogether. We need training in the prison. We have an overcrowding situation. One of the things I observe as an attorney of law is how easily people are sent to prison when there are other alternatives such as even bail, alternative sentencing, reform, rehabilitation. And that is something that we need to look at by legislation. The United Progressive Party is committed to govern by the rule of law, not by force and might, but by the rule of law. We will abide by the Constitution. Section 12. Every person have a right to freedom of expression, freedom of speech, freedom to disseminate information and ideas without interference from the government. Section 13, freedom to freedom of association, freedom to associate and to assemble. We will give those rights to the people and honor them. They already have those rights. We would not have you in a state of emergency for 5 years, 500 days, I'm sorry. We will honor and rule by the Constitution, honor our oath, and abide by the rule of law. And so it is, ladies and gentlemen of the diaspora, as we come to you, asking how you can work with us and how we can work with you, I'm saying to you that this is a good beginning. This dialogue that we are having, today we are speaking to you. Tomorrow we'll be listening to you when you will be speaking to us. And the next day we're sitting together at the table discussing how together we can become more involved in nation building. I myself, I have lived in the diaspora. I went to the United States when I was only 24 years old. And I lived there for 15 years before I returned to Antigua. I educated myself there. And so I know the value of going to the diaspora and achieving the objectives. Some people went for pursuit of education. Some people went just for a better life. Some people for family unification. But all of us have remained committed to the connection with our homeland. All of us want better for Antigua and Barbuda. All of us want to see that our family and friends in Antigua live under the rule of law. And that's what the United Progressive Party brings to this campaign. That's what we bring to the people. That's what we offer. It is time for a change. And we're asking the diaspora to support us as we bring this message to the people of Antigua and Barbuda. It is time for a change. May God bless Antigua and Barbuda. May God bless you all.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We are, what are some of the takeaways here?
I'm really encouraged by the idea of working together and also the police reform. That's something that we're hearing echoing all over the world, especially in the United States where we're located. So it's interesting to see the parallels that are there. I know Mr. Bowman spoke about the tear gassing and the bullets, and then, you know, the message that water cannons would be next. I know when I heard that specifically, I was horrified. So I'm glad to hear that that's something that under this administration that they would really look at and not implement, because the memories of that just are not good memories. So I'm glad that we would not be following suit if the UPP was in power.
Indeed. I also think that a reimagining of the police department, he didn't use those words, but seeing the police as an agent of peace rather than an agent of force. I think that adds a different paradigm to the whole discussion, and also could be very, very effective in terms of having a more peaceful and a law-abiding community. What do you think?
I definitely agree. If we start to look at why the police are here, what they're here to do in a different way, we can definitely start to interact with and engage with them in a different way as well. It's something that I think is much needed in a lot of communities, and I would definitely love to see that happen in Antigua and Barbuda. Hopefully we can get more local police than people who aren't from the island. That way we can start to have that friendly neighbor vibe that Mr. Bowen was talking about, where the police were your friends. So that's something that I would love to see come back as well.
I also like the whole idea of prison and criminal justice reform. There's no way a prison built in the 18th century could meet the 21st century demands. And it's interesting, I've never raised it, but I've long wondered why in the world don't they build a prison someplace else and do something else with that space. But there's no way that prison could serve the demands of the 21st century. And remember, we have to be more humane today. Forget about today.
Yes.
We had to be more humane in 1967 or 68 when they got associated statehood to show that we're different from our colonial masters. But certainly by 1981, there should have been a total paradigm shift when we became fully independent to say, look, we're serious about law and order, but we as people in authority trusted with leading the commonwealth, the common good of the people, not talking about the British Commonwealth here. We also will show that we are law-abiding and that we will abide by certain rules and regulations, even as we lead out in our program against criminals. I think that it would add to the legitimacy of everything we do to say, just as we expect the citizens to be law-abiding, we also will be law-abiding in our leadership.
Exactly. It's that leading by example and that citizen or servant leadership, being able to demonstrate that you can be the person that you want the populace to be. And it's something that's definitely long overdue and well needed. That training would be so impactful. So I'm hopefully encouraged.
I'm also intrigued by Zephaniah Alexander Luby. I'm gonna do some more reading on him, and that was really amazing, yes. And it's also amazing that so many people from Antigua, and also Antigua and Barbuda, and also other islands who have contributed significantly to history in so many parts of the world. And it just shows that even today, with our youngsters growing up, all they need is exposure, education, and opportunity.
Exactly. That was my precise thought. Exactly. We've done so much to lead as the Caribbean, so we should take this opportunity to lead in constitutional reform, prison reform, as well as legal reform. So very encouraged.
Yes, I think it was a great note on which to end. Mr. Bowen did tremendously well, and as did all the other candidates, and we look forward to these forums in the future.
And I think we are waiting on another public service announcement, so we'll be right back.
Why vote? Because for over 100 years after slavery, our ancestors still did not have the right to vote. Freedom was only on paper. Planters enacted nugent laws, contract laws, tenancy laws, and vagrancy laws just to control our ancestors. Incredibly, even some churches colluded with the colonial masters by collecting vestry taxes. Life became so unbearable that it sparked an uprising from 1934 to 1939, not only in Antigua and Barbuda, but in other colonies as well. This uprising forced the British government to appoint the West Indian Royal Commission and issue the Moyne Report in 1945, which recommended, among other things, universal adult suffrage, which was finally realized in Antigua in 1951. Why vote? Because for over 117 years after slavery, our ancestors through blood, sweat, and tears fought for and won the right to vote. And upon winning that right, they immediately changed the tenor of the Legislative Assembly in Antigua. After such hard-fought victory, you must treasure the right to vote. Don't sell it. Don't surrender it. Don't cheapen it. Don't give it away. Register today and vote.
Welcome back, everyone. The candidates will now answer some of your questions. Tonight's Q&A will focus specifically on constituency-related concerns. So post your questions in the chat for those joining via Facebook. And if we don't get to your question tonight, we'll try to get a response as soon as possible and share it out when we can. We will first start with Mr. Franz DeFreitas. Stafford, would you like to ask the first question?
Yes. Good evening again, Mr. DeFreitas. What do you think can be done to make the constituency of St. John's City South more community-oriented, with particular emphasis on A, social services, and B, infrastructure?
Stafford, thanks for that question. First, I want to let everybody just be aware that St. John's City South is probably one of the most diverse communities in Antigua and Barbuda, with people from all walks of life across all socio-economic levels. But there are a lot of things that we can do, and we are doing now, because I just want to posit here that this redeemed team, the United Progressive Party, and myself as a candidate in St. John's City South, we're not waiting to be in government to affect change. And so one of the things in this crisis that we're looking at is programs to highlight our similarities. Oftentimes, when we talk about immigrants and in Antigua and Barbuda, non-nationals, we talk about the things that make us different in our community. But the truth of the matter is that we are very similar in many ways. Many of us come from an African background, and so we eat the same foods, we listen to the same base of music, we have a common culture. And one of the things that we will be doing in our community is to continue to accentuate the positive things that make us similar. Additionally, there is a lack of safety net programs that exist in Antigua and Barbuda, and programs, for example, to help people during periods of unemployment. We are experiencing that right now with this COVID crisis, where many thousands of people, some in the same household, would have left their jobs because of the economic and public health crisis. And there are no safety net, hence the United Progressive Party. And myself, as I sit here now, I'm in New York trying to harness resources for the people of St. John's City South. These are programs that we will underscore and develop and strengthen so that people will never have to worry. How is it that they are going to eat food? How is it that they're going to survive in a time of crisis in Antigua and Barbuda? And in Antigua and Barbuda, we have very poor resources for those that are single parents, poor child care, so that people can go out and find jobs. These are programs that we will continue to lift and develop so that we can have a community that is strong, a community that has good infrastructure. Everybody may know right now that Botanical Gardens is in St. John's City South, but it's just a rundown place that does nothing. No development, no green spaces for recreational and reflection time in Antigua and Barbuda. The United Progressive Party will see and highlight these issues and be able to bring a resolution to that infrastructure, a resolution to the social services deficiencies that we face in St. John's City South.
Thanks, Franz. Our next question is, what are the key economic opportunities or drivers that you will advocate for and implement to benefit the constituents of St. John's City South within your first 36 months?
Real thanks to the question. You know, I am very big on micro and small business development. And something that I've spoken about quite extensively is the establishment of what is called a business incubator within the community. That is an organization that is put in place to help develop, train, and support new and existing businesses. In the case of new businesses, it provides knowledge base to be able to stand those businesses up. And in the case of existing businesses, it allows the businesses to scale by providing the additional resources that are necessary. We will immediately, in our first 36 months, establish a physical business incubator focusing on micro and small businesses. Additionally, we will continue to educate the people in our community and give them the tools that are necessary for them to be able to expand their economic realities. So, for example, there are many young men that sit on the corner in Antigua and Barbuda, and because they don't have 5 CXC subjects or because of some other situation, they're not able to earn a living. We are right now establishing a program of teaching young men and young women in Antigua how to get a trade by merging and pairing them with mentors who are already doing that. And so when we get into government, we will be able to position these people so that they can have gainful employment in Antigua and Barbuda. The idea of the diversification of the economic sectors at a community level in Antigua and Barbuda is something that we also have to look at in terms of developing economic opportunities within a quick time. So how does that translate into a real project? Every year we have mango in Antigua from May back to probably August and September. And you will find many of the mangoes spoil, and after mango season, you can't have anything. It's not a hard operation to get a processing plant to be able to can or bottle or turn into some sort of syrup, mango as a fruit. But yet still nobody does that. In St. John's City South, we are already looking into to small enterprises that will be able to harness economic development in a short time. And eventually, as we scale those businesses, they will look to distribute and potentially export some of the local fruits that we have in Antigua and Barbuda. And then there's the issue of construction and maintenance of new and existing buildings. One of the things that kill me in Antigua and Barbuda, we have buildings that we have that just fall down because of lack of maintenance, because of lack of just basically care on a daily basis. We will put infrastructure in place. We will train people to understand how to maintain new and existing structures and even historical structures, because we throw away a lot of things that are historical in Antigua and Barbuda, and be able to position our community to look good when people walk to that. And finally, one of the things that we're doing in terms of the development of our human resource in our community is to establish an employment agency. So many people don't have jobs, but there's no structure that is in place to equip them and prepare them for work and know what their status is and identify work and bring work to the table, whether that is temporary or whether it is permanent. We will be establishing these infrastructural pieces in our community, making St. John's City South the community of preference for people to live who are currently in Antigua and people who are coming back from the diaspora to Antigua and Barbuda.
Thank you so much, Mr. DeFreitas. We really appreciate it. And now, Stafford, I believe you have some questions for our next candidates.
Good evening again, Mrs. Potter. This next question is for you. Now, under a previous UPP government, the representative started a sports complex at the back of Golden Grove School. The question from one of the community members is, do you have any plan for that facility? And if you are elected into office, what would you do with this facility?
Thank you for that question. Let me preface the answer with a little revelation. The Nia Roberts Community Center in Lower Otters is the only community center that we have presently serving the constituents of St. John's River South. Going into the constituency, speaking with constituents, with residents in Nut Grove, Golden Grove, and Lower Otters, I've been asked that question time and time again. What are you going to do? Is there a plan? And I engage them. We have discussions on what are the plans, how do they see that community center benefiting them? The first step is for me to facilitate a community organization that will take responsibility to seeing that community center being completed and outfit in a way that will benefit the residents in the area. We envision, all of us together, envision a daycare center, public daycare center in that community center. We envision a space that will allow for mentorship, programs for after-school programs for children to come to assist with after school, with homework, with preparing them for CXCs and common entrance. We also see a space for programs such as karate, different skills that to engage our youth so that they have something to do. Now, this community organization will not only take responsibility for the community center, but also in the upkeep, maintenance, and to see to the safety and security for the entire communities in that area. Also, it will extend, we're looking to organize other community organizations in Otters, Newtown, and Radio Range that will take responsibility for that area, and also in Golden Grove New Extension to take responsibility for that area. I am a person that believes in partnership. I believe just as time gone, it takes a village to raise a child. It's going to take the village to maintain and to bring about a community that is beneficial to all of us.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Mrs. Potter. The next question is poverty, unemployment, hunger, and poor living conditions are on the rise in the constituency. How do you plan to help families get out of their current poor conditions?
So that question, I want to just read something from the United Progressive Party, the People's Charter 2014 to 2019. I don't believe in reinventing the wheel. The United Progressive Party was very much prepared for managing the affairs of Antigua and Barbuda, from social transformation to social cohesion. Process of building shared values and communities of interpretation, reducing disparities in wealth and income, and generally enable people to have a sense that they are engaged in a common enterprise, facing shared challenges, and that they are members of the same community. The UPP has a team of persons whose expertise are in issues of economic development. I will be guided by their advice. We agree as well that social development is connected to economic development. There are many persons in the Ministry of Social Transformation with expertise that cover a range of social development issues. I will draw on them for guidance on how we can alleviate some of these conditions. That said, I aim to have programs established and targets set for things like improving welfare support for persons in need. This will be done in consultation with persons with those expertise to guide the design, development, and operation of such programs. For example, in case of working age people, the idea is to give them a chance at improving their socioeconomic condition so that they can stand on their own feet instead of depending constantly on others and the state for support. Our administration must also take a serious look at who benefit from a range of social programs. State resources are always limited, so we must ensure that the needy are in fact benefiting from such support. This makes for more efficient and effective use of the limited resources available to us. In short, the United Progressive Party have persons who have the knowledge and expertise in alleviating the poverty that our people have found themselves in. The idea is for us to sit at the table and work together towards eradicating poverty in St. John's Wood South and in Antigua and Barbuda as a whole.
Thank you. Mrs. Potter, what specific programs do you have in mind for children, teens, young adults, seniors of your constituency? And how do you plan to incorporate the diaspora in these programs that you have for these groups that I mentioned?
Thank you for that question. The programs that I have in mind are programs that were requested by the constituents in St. John's Wood South. Many of our seniors presently, they have a wealth of knowledge, they're retired, and they don't have anything to do. I believe living things should always move, grow, continue to learn. So in that said, community center and community centers in Radio Range and Golden Grove New Extension, I want to have a space where our seniors will have somewhere to go. They can learn to step dance if they've never learned to step dance. And it's also an opportunity for them to teach our youth good working ethics, mentor them. So that is one of the programs that we would like to implement in St. John's Wood South. In addition to that, we need programs for skills-based, trades-based. So you have a lot of persons in St. John's Wood South. They are experts in different fields. It could be mechanic, it could be architect, it could be carpentry, different skill set. If they have a place, they will be willing to volunteer their time into training our children, prepare them for the world of work. Some of our children are not as academically inclined as others. So we want to have programs in that we can, those who have excelled in their education in academically, they're able to now pass it on to the children, mentor the children, assist the children, prepare them for future work. This is another program. The diaspora, we need you. You have a wealth of knowledge, experience, expertise. So we're going to need you to partner with us, not only to help fund these foundations and these programs, but there has to be a way where you can pass on your knowledge to us, even give us ideas of programs that will help to prepare our children, prepare our middle age to having a better life.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Potter. We appreciate your forthright answers to these questions.
Our first question for Mr. Marshall is, when elected, what will you do to assist the farmers in your constituency who are dealing with the issue of thefts and the effects of drought?
It's very important for us to understand, first of all, that agriculture is a critical component of the country's national economic development, and more importantly, for the economic development of the St. Mary's South constituency. Having said that, it is also important for us to note that in the St. Mary's South constituency, we have the critical condition to develop that area as the breadbasket of Antigua and Barbuda. But at the same time, yes, we have the challenge in terms of theft of the produce of farmers. And so it is going to be very important at the beginning to lobby for legislation to deal with petty larceny in terms of agriculture. But at the same time, there are other things that can be done immediately. One, we have to advocate, especially for farmers on large scale, the possibility for them to live on their farm. That obviously will deter people from stealing their produce. And at the same time, we can use technology, placing cameras on farms, and that also would detect, or it will prevent individuals from stealing from farmers, because it is a very serious condition. It is suggested that farmers lose around 1/3, if not more than 1/3 of their crops every year as a result of this activity. And so it is very important for us to protect the farmers, because the farmers' livelihood is very important, not only for the expansion of their field of endeavor. And agriculture must be seen as any other economic activity in Antigua and Barbuda, be it tourism or likewise. And so they need that revenue to be able to send their children and also their grandchildren to university, so that people can move out of this mindset that agriculture is only for those persons who do not do well at school, but they will see agriculture as a science and as a business that is important for food safety and food security in Antigua and Barbuda. So yes, we have to protect our farmers to ensure that there's safety in terms of what the activities are taking place on their farm.
Mr. Marshall, do you have any ideas or plans to assist the unemployment issue among young men primarily, but also young women in your constituency?
Unemployment is a serious problem in the St. Mary's South constituency. In fact, St. Mary's parish is one of those parishes in Antigua and Barbuda with high levels of unemployment. Unemployment among young men, young women, and also with adults. So one of the first things I will do when elected as the parliamentary representative of the St. Mary's South constituency is to establish a constituency development fund. And I pledge publicly, and this is not a pledge for the party, but I pledge publicly that I would place any constituency allowance that is given to me in that constituency development fund. And I will also work with members of the diaspora from the St. Mary's South area to contribute towards that fund, as well as with the private sector in Antigua and Barbuda. So we can use that funding to create certain levels of employment in the area. And I would also say, going back to the last question that was asked by Brother DeFreita, I also believe in the whole issue of developing cooperatives within the communities. And what I personally call the solidarity-based economy via cooperative, to bring the young men and the young women and the unemployed in the St. Mary's South constituency in forming cooperatives or community-based economic organization, so that in a form of self-management, they will be able to create employment opportunities for themselves, obviously with the assistance of the government of the day, the United Progressive Party. But it is very important for us to, first of all, educate our young men and young women, because education is going to be critical, and for them to understand that it is important for them to develop economic activities with government and outside of government to ensure that we can meaningfully employ all the people in the constituency.
Can you tell us what your plans are for the West Palm Beach area? It's usually flooded when it rains, so people are curious.
Yes, and if you had the opportunity to look at my manifesto during the last election, and it is central to my policy in the upcoming election. In the Bowlands community, we suffer in that area that we call West Palm Beach from flooding, especially during the hurricane season. And it is unfortunate that it is not a situation that has been addressed meaningfully up until now. We had an engagement some time ago with NODS, where we were going to institute what I call the West Palm Beach Flood Alleviation Project. And while we were working at that project, we went to all the areas where there's runoff leading to the West Palm Beach area, because there are 4 tributaries that leads water into that area. And so what we did is that we had looked at all of them, and we locate areas where we could dam the water upstream, and by damming the water, we will use that water for irrigation purposes for farmers who are located in those specific areas. So it would alleviate the runoff of water in the West Palm Beach area. At the same time, it means that we'll also have to look at certain infrastructural development, because unfortunately, when those lands were sold to the residents, there were no real development plan at that particular time. So there are some housing whose front is almost at the back, and the back of their home is almost where the front should be. And so we would have to develop the infrastructural network in that area to ensure that not only that there would be adequate runoff of water, but at the same time that the residents in that area would not have the challenge that they're going to have to walk with 2 shoes when it rains, or when there's heavy rainfall, that they would have to get into an old fridge in order to get out of the area. Another thing that we will do with respect to that area is that we would obviously have to have dialogue with the management of Jolly Beach, because that was one of the challenges faced by the residents in that area. When the golf course was developed, a lot of the area that traditionally there was runoff of water was utilized as part of the golf course. So therefore, the water backs up into the community simply because there is not an adequate channel for it to run into the sea. And so we'll have to sit down with the proprietors, with the owners of that area to see how best we can alleviate that situation within the West Palm Beach area. But we believe that with the West Palm Beach flood alleviation project, not only will we stem a lot of the challenges in relationship to the flooding at that area, but we will use the water, we'll dam the water to ensure the adequate development of agriculture, and then comes back to the whole question of how we intend to create employment opportunities for the people in the area. Because by having water for farming in that area, we would be able to extend the period in which farming can take place. In other words, farming will not take place in the constituency only during the wet season, but even during the period when there's not sufficient rainfall, we'll be able to provide the farmers with adequate irrigation.
Thank you so much, Mr. Marshall. And we'll move on to questions from the next candidate.
Hello again, Mr. Bowen. A question from your constituents. One of your constituents asked, what are you hearing as to the popular needs of the community for community development? They said, I'm thinking of a community recreation center with activities that caters to all. Do you have a plan for any such projects, even if it will demand the help of the diaspora?
Thank you very much for that question. I remember an old commercial for a hair product, and it began like this. I'm not only the president, I'm also a client. But I say that to say that I'm not only the candidate running for election in St. Philip South, it is also my home. It's where I live, where I was born, it's where I grew up. And so my interest in the community is not only just for politics. Talking about a recreational center and a center for things like shelter in hurricane and other things, I think it is very, very important that we have such a facility in the community. And I have already begun the design and began to source funding to erect such a facility. Actually, I met with the architect yesterday, and I think today, this morning, he sent me an email that he has some renderings for me to look at, but it was too large to be sent by email. So I have to actually go and physically pick it up from him or to look at it from his computer. So I'm very much involved in transforming the community such that we have such a facility that can not only serve for regular recreational needs of the community, but also for senior citizen programs, for shelter, and for other use in one central location. So that is something that I have always been interested in.
The next question, I just have to do a little preamble to it. A few months ago, someone sent me a number and said I should call this person about lands that's being sold close to Old Road. And since my family's from Old Road, I decided to call the number to get the piece to buy. The person texts and say, send me a text. So I text and said, my name is Stafford Byers. Maybe I shouldn't have said Stafford Byers. Maybe I should use my cousin or something. And I would like to buy a piece of land in this area. And that was the last time I heard from them. So one of your potential constituents, now I've asked a question related to, but not my situation, that many Antiguans and Barbadians return home annually and try to purchase land to build homes where they'd come to retire, because most of us would like to retire in Antigua and Barbuda. The person said that they're somewhat perturbed by the fact that so often some of the most desirable and most arable land being almost given to non-nationals, people who don't look like us, and many of us who don't share our concern for Antigua and Barbuda. They want to know what are some of the steps you take to ameliorate that problem?
Another excellent question. It demonstrates the level of intelligence of my constituents, which I know very much and which you are now also learning. Land distribution in the community is a very important resource, and it's very important to the continuation of the community. Recently found out that over 4,000 acres of our land were to be used for some project, some economic recovery, something will be a project, and that they're going to take 4,000 acres and build marinas and build hotels and build all sorts of things. Now, the thing that strikes me about that is that we elect a representative of the community who sits in the cabinet. And that person have never, ever spoken to us as a community about anything to do with that project. I have also watched lands in Piccadilly being distributed to persons other than community members. And I'm totally against that. I'm not saying that people other than the community cannot buy land in the community. But what I'm saying is that the lands in the community ought to be given first and foremost to community members for the expansion of the village, for their children and their children's children. So when I'm elected, I will ensure that members of the community have access, have the right of first refusal for lands and the best lands in the community, so that the community remain a cohesive community. I remember when I lived in New York, I learned about this town, Levittown, where the organizers of the city at that time gave all these good lands to a certain type of people to build homes, and those persons could have their mortgages, and over a period of time they built equity in the homes and were able to send their children to college. On the other hand, in the Black community, they house them in apartments where they pay rent, never building equity, never having investment in the housing so that they can send their children. They just pay rent all the time, and the apartments eventually run down and various things. I'm saying that to say this. I learned that our present representative is taking some container houses that was, acquired for a prison to put in Bethesda for the Bethesda people. And the lands on the hillside and the other areas are given to expatriates. What is going to happen is that 30 years from now, those expatriates will have millions of dollars of equity in that property, and the container houses will even be devalued. They will have nothing. I am saying to you, the people of St. Philip South, that will not happen under my watch. You will be the one who will get the land, that will build the equity, that will be able to fund your children's education, and that will make you better off. And that is my pledge to you, and that is what will happen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bowen.
Unemployment, decreasing opportunities, crime, COVID-19, poor governance, the environment. Look around. Our twin island nation needs your help. That's why the Diaspora Progressives are raising funds to help the UPP develop practical solutions that will benefit citizens and residents. From providing COVID relief to implementing community outreach projects, your donation to the Better Antigua and Barbuda Fund can make a difference for this and future generations. Visit GoFundMe.com and search for Help Secure a Better Antigua and Barbuda to lend your support to the UPP, the right choice. Welcome back, everyone. As you heard, that was another appeal for your support of the Better Antigua and Barbuda Fund. Please consider making a donation. It would really help us and this whole cause out. Now, without further ado, it is my esteemed honor and pleasure to welcome the captain of the UPP Team to Redeem, the political leader, Mr. Harold Lovell. We'll have a conversation with him to hear more about the UPP's plans for moving our country forward. So, good evening, Mr. Lovell. How are you feeling today? And, welcome to our second forum.
Well, good evening, and I'm feeling very proud having listened to my colleagues. I'm feeling very happy because I realize that in the very near future, Antigua and Barbuda will be in very safe hands. And I'm feeling encouraged. And I just want to say to you and to Stafford that you're doing a fantastic job. And so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great. So first question, we've heard so much controversy about COVID-19 and the vaccines. And sometimes it's important, the important messages about the safety and public health tend to get lost. Although you have shared your position and the party's position on COVID-19 a number of times, can you please once more reiterate what the party's position is on the COVID-19 vaccine?
Thank you very much. The United Progressive Party takes its cue from the international organizations, the regional organizations, and the local health professionals. And so the World Health Organization, the Pan American Health Organization, CARPHA, as well as those health professionals in Antigua, they all advise that the most effective weapon to fight the COVID pandemic is the vaccine. And so we accept that, and we have done whatever we can do in order to encourage persons to take the vaccine as a means of helping to combat the pandemic. However, we do not believe in the mandatory vaccination drive that some people have been promoting. We believe that this is a very sensitive issue. It's an issue that involves people's rights, and therefore one has to balance the social objective against the concerns and the doubts that people have with respect to their bodies. We therefore feel that the most effective way, the most efficient way, and the most democratic way is to encourage persons to promote constructive dialogue, to have even debates, and to make certain that persons are comfortable in taking the vaccine. So we believe that we have a duty to encourage, to promote the efficacy of the vaccine, to encourage also through public education programs so that people understand why it is that we support the vaccination campaign. So our position is one of, yes, we support the vaccination campaign globally, but we believe that it should be done by persuasion and encouragement, not by mandating it.
Thank you so much for that. And just one more COVID-related question at this time. If the UPP is successful at the polls and you do in fact become the next Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, and we're still in the throes of this pandemic, how will you handle this public health crisis and the effects that it's having on our country and our people?
Right. Well, there are two aspects that we see. One, of course, there's the health crisis, and then there's the economic fallout from the health crisis. As far as the health crisis is concerned, I think we can see that a number of protocols have already been established, not just in Antigua, not just in the Caribbean, but globally. So we understand the importance of sanitizing, social distancing, mask wearing, and that type of thing. We believe these are sensible protocols, and so a UPP government will do everything to promote these and to make it easy easy for persons to comply and for the program to be successful. Then there's the economic fallout, and a key aspect of the economic fallout is the fact that people have been placed at a severe disadvantage. People have lost jobs, people have lost businesses, people have suffered in various ways. And so we believe that the social benefits that we must promote in order to alleviate the suffering that people are experiencing is going to be very important. It's our view that the primary responsibility of any elected government must be to look about the welfare and the well-being of its people. And so one, yes, we will look about the health crisis following the international protocols. We look about the economic fallout by creating those social remedies and programs in order to reduce the suffering of our people. We have already put out a paper where we costed a 6-month program in the first instance, and we have a wider program in terms of how we would seek to manage some of the economic issues that come as a result, or that have come as a result of the health crisis. So the social impact of the economic fallout is going to be something that we treat very seriously to make sure that our people no longer suffer the way that they are currently suffering under this administration.
Now, Mr. Lovell, continuing along that line, I think that the COVID-19 pandemic has really exposed the Achilles heel of our economy, in that tourism being our mainstay, it has shown how vulnerable this one track economy is to any community. We need a plan B, or at least another plan A. What are some of the things we would do, if elected, to diversify the economy so that we would not be totally dependent on tourism?
Yeah, tourism has created, well, the pandemic has created a new normal. And I think we have to recognize that in order to address the new normal, we cannot use the tools of the past to address the solutions of the future. It therefore means that looking forward, we're going to have to depend heavily on innovation, technology, and as you said, diversification. These will have to be the watchwords of the future. Now, insofar as innovation is concerned, this means young people. When we were in office previously, we were able to create the GATE program, which was an innovative and an advanced and very visionary program that we were able to introduce, and it was extremely successful, so successful that persons came from other parts of the world, as far as Papua New Guinea, next to Australia, to view our program to see how they could replicate it in their own country. Our program won awards regionally and internationally. And so we have a track record of really focusing and prioritizing innovation and technology. We will take that to another and a brighter level. Insofar as the question of diversification is concerned, we believe that tourism, yes, it has shown that there are weaknesses, and we recognize that, but we think that tourism will continue for a very long time to be the mainstay of our economy. We need, however, to recognize that there are new forms of tourism and new opportunities that will be created. And we look, for example, at the way in which people will come here to work and to do their business in Antigua and do it virtually. In doing so, it means that we have to make sure that the right technological infrastructure is in place. And that means we have to fix the whole question of internet speed, cost of internet access, and these things. These will be addressed by us to make sure that we create new linkages with tourism. It's also a fact that there are huge leakages as far as tourism is concerned. And we have to make sure then important that we plug some of those leakages to make sure that the tourist dollar, or a greater percentage of the tourist dollar, stays in Antigua. And whilst we plug the leakages, we have to promote linkages. And with linkages, we're talking about the linkage between tourism and agriculture, again, tourism and technology. And this is all part of the campaign and our vision to diversify the economy, but including tourism in that diversification. But further, we look at creating new centers for economic prosperity and economic development. So we've spoken, for example, of developing our agricultural sector in a modern way with agro-industrial production. We've spoken of transforming Antigua and Barbuda from being merely an airline hub for our regional carrier LIAT to being an aviation center for the entire Caribbean. And so it means then that we would want to build the aviation center on 3 pillars. One, cargo as a cargo hub. Secondly, repair and maintenance, where we utilize the skills acquired by many of our LIAT engineers so that that can become the basis for developing a thriving industry insofar as repair and maintenance operations are concerned. And thirdly, education. We feel that Antigua can become the center for aviation education in the Caribbean. And that means focusing on avionics, it means aviation security, aviation management, aviation operations, every aspect of aviation. We are geographically well positioned. We have the assets, we have the old terminal building, we have the old Panam base that's contiguous with the airport, we have an underused and in some cases disused runway. So we have the assets that need to be properly harnessed and mobilized so that we create the basis for that aviation sector. So we believe that yes, there must be diversification. Tourism will continue to be important. We must build linkages with tourism. We will be highly driven by technology and innovation, and there will be a great focus on bringing young people into business through entrepreneurship and other means by which we will promote and encourage local Antiguans and Barbudans and persons from the diaspora to come and assist us in all the above that I just mentioned, in the innovation, the technology, in helping to create the aviation center. In fact, as far as that is concerned, I've already been in discussion with several Antiguans who have specialized skills in these areas. So we believe this is a great opportunity for us not only to develop and diversify the local economy, but to build a strong partnership with the diaspora and to tap into the skills that we know are available out there.
Thank you. Please give a few parting words as we come to the end of this forum, especially to the folks in the diaspora.
Well, let me take the opportunity as leader of the United Progressive Party to say that, to borrow the very fine phrase from Mr. Marshall, we'll see a transformative shift in the mindset of government and the way in which we do business. Our focus will be on creating a new vision of Antigua and Barbuda, which transcends the geographic borders of Antigua and Barbuda. We believe that being an Antiguan and Barbudan and being committed to the nation of Antigua and Barbuda is something that does not reside only within the national borders of 108 square miles or 62 square miles. We feel that the notion of the nation, whereby wherever in the world you are, you can contribute. And therefore, we have to build the constitutional, the juridical, the political, and the economic framework and basis whereby all who love this country can participate, where we no longer see persons who are from the diaspora as foreigners. We see you as part of this nation of Antigua and Barbuda. And so it will require a new psychological mindset. And we believe that this is possible. And not only is it possible, we think it is necessary. As I indicated earlier, post-COVID, or even during COVID, the new normal is such that we will have to equip ourselves with new thinking. And part of that new thinking will be the inclusiveness which brings Antiguans and Barbudans, wherever Antiguans and Barbudans reside, into the development process. So we are very excited about the future. And it's a future where there will be a partnership between those of us who live here and those Antiguans and Barbudans who live abroad. We think that there are endless opportunities, endless benefits, endless areas for growth and development. And we look forward to building this partnership with you in the diaspora so that we here in Antigua and Barbuda can say, you don't have to only come home. Wherever you are, you can play your part. But we are going to create the facilitating and the environment whereby you can come if you wish. You can stay where you are, but you can prosper. That's the most important thing. You can make your contribution and you can prosper. And together, we will win. That's really what we need to be saying at this time. Together, you and us, we will win.
Thank you, Mr. Lovell. This has been another wonderful evening. What an enlightening program this has been. We thank everyone who has helped to make it possible. Lois Kirby in the United Kingdom for the keyboard rendition of the national anthem. The Reverend Donald Butler for the opening prayer. The remarkable hardworking team behind the scenes who toiled to make this event such a success. That includes persons in Antigua and across the United States. Our UPP, very impressive candidates of the South. And of course, our inimitable political leader, Mr. Harold Lovell. But most of all, thanks to you, our audience, for joining us.
I echo those same sentiments, and I too say thank you all for joining us tonight. I just want to put out a plea for everyone. If you are not registered to vote, please do so as soon as possible. It is incumbent that every single eligible Antiguan and Barbudan is able to participate in the next general election. Your vote matters. Get out there, register, collect your voter registration card. If you live in the diaspora, make plans to travel home soon and register to vote. We must also encourage our relatives and friends to get registered and exercise their civic duty during the next election. We must vote like our lives depend on it. Vote like your children's lives depend on it. If you don't, you do not have the right to complain. Our country can do better, our country must do better, and our country will do better. Have a good night.
Amen. Good night.